been a big week. Google put agentic search in all 180 countries. Anthropic did some fantastic stuff with nuclear safety net. Nvidia tiptoed around export rules and finally got their product into China, or pretty ready for it. OpenAI is chasing a $500 billion valuation. And then Meta, after spending a lot of money hiring people, has now stopped. Pretty exciting times.
Very exciting times. It's interesting to figure out or determine, though, what it actually means for the everyday punter, for those in enterprises leading the organisation, and for employees.
Exactly right. Look, it's exactly that, because that's what this is all about. So everybody understands, we're from Enterprise AI, a software as a service business in Australia that's trying to help more to our clients out there that want to understand what's happening and get a really good, down-to-earth understanding of what's happening from us.
I think it's hard because there's a lot of noise out there. And so our mission will be to distill that noise and try to figure out what the impact actually is for those that decide to join.
All right, so let's break this down a bit. So the Google piece. So what is agentic search in 180 countries? So for those of you that have been using Google for a while, you'll know that what happens is you type in something and Google comes back with an answer, and generally it gives you back a whole lot of companies that you can then find, and you can click on the links. And how they make money out of that is the people that get the links that are sponsored pay for it. Google gets the money, advertising money, and that's what's driven Google for many years, or Alphabet as it's called, the company that owns Google. But what Google has done now to try and keep up with all the AI stuff that's going on is they've put a summary of the answer of what you asked for at the top of the page, which is now stopping people clicking through and clicking on the sponsored links below. So what that means is people aren't getting the value out of their advertising they used to. It's going to have impacts for Google's revenue. It's going to have impacts for how many clicks. It's going to impact for SEO. So it's a fairly massive change to the way we all understand the internet works today.
So question for you, Doug, as a business owner and founder of many businesses, how do you think that changes the way that you would approach your marketing strategy? Well,
for a start, I mean, there's a lot of talk about SEO being dead and that you need to actually write things for these AI agents. So still the biggest player in the market in AI, and certainly in AI search, is OpenAI by a long shot. But now Google's done this. They've sort of tried to mute the whole OpenAI situation with what's happening with ChatGPT. And then Meta, similarly, is trying to spend a lot of money, as we've just seen this week, when they've stopped hiring people. But in the last few weeks, they've spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars on paying people to come and join their company and leave OpenAI or whatever company they come from, Google. So the amount of money being thrown around is just staggering for individuals. The amount of impact it's going to have on a business owner like me is pretty big. To be perfectly frank, don't know. Too soon to tell, but definitely going to be a problem for SEO businesses, and definitely going to make us think about how do we change our websites so that these AI agents find us rather than find something else.
Really good point that you raised, Doug, around the scrambling. So it does feel like there's a burning platform everywhere you look, particularly for those big players like Google, OpenAI. How long do you think that period is going to last? Because I think there is a lot of hype and anxiety, and no one really knows when that's going to settle.
Well, look, it does feel a lot like the dot-com boom, when it sort of was building up all through the late 90s. And then sort of by about March 2000, the stock exchange literally exploded. Look, it's so hard to tell. There's so much money being thrown at it. It's got a while to go. And then there's a doomsday, as it says, sort of everything's going to fall apart in 2027, which is certainly not something that we're a lot more optimistic on it. So we'd like to see a whole lot of really good things come out of this. Another industrial revolution, shall we say, which was hard while you go through it, but the other side, it's pretty special.
So an interesting point that we came across when we were doing our study for today's session was the B that sat in front of the $500 billion valuation that has come from OpenAI.
So have you got shares?
I do not
You
have
do not?
shares
No, that's bad luck.
in OpenAI. Do you?
If only we did.
Yeah, I agree. But I suppose the market is, or investors everywhere are factoring in just the multiples that they anticipate artificial intelligence is going to bring. How do you think business owners and employees can do that in their own ecosystems rather than just investing in these big kind of hyperscalers and massive players? How can they bring some of that multiplying energy into their own day-to-day life?
Well, yeah, look, really interesting. For a start, they need to be doing something about it. And I hate saying this, but I think Australia, for a start, is a bit of a laggard, right? We generally follow the rest of the world for the most part. And so us really trying to get in the spot where we can, push forward with this and be able to do something better going forward is certainly something that's interesting to us in enterprise AI. How does any individual company? Well, look, we certainly are from an enterprise AI perspective. We're a fully AI-driven business. We run all on Microsoft, and we're trying to sell into large enterprises to try and help them, mostly business people, work out what they're doing and try and really focus on business value. Because the other part that's news that may not have made this, but I did see it this week, is that MIT came out with another document that said something of the order of 85 or 90% of the actual pieces of work that are AI projects that have happened in the last 12 months or so are a disaster.
Yep.
So, I mean, from being in this transformation space as we have been for quite a while, both of us, most of our working careers, it's always been said that you're sort of 70 to 80%, depending on which consulting firm had done the survey, that sort of number of transformations fail. Now MIT's come out and backed it again, which is interesting because now you've got a university who's trying to, I would have said, more push this than not, and that sort of is a real place that hopefully, to your point, people can start getting value in it there. And then once they show that value, they'll get the revenue value and the efficiency and the effectiveness value out of that. And then potentially the valuation of the company will be better as well. Going back to your earlier point.
So what do you think the major friction points are for that 70 to 80% that fail? And are you saying or implying that it's easier to start incrementally and safe and small and then to scale and expand?
Yeah, look, MIT didn't elaborate that much on it. They were sort of really just doing more of a sort of a survey. But MIT and everyone says sort of the same things, which is people aren't focusing on business value, they're focusing on delivering technology. And to be perfectly frank, that's pretty obvious for everybody sitting there and everybody listening to this. Hopefully it is, that if you don't focus on the right thing and you just buy technology, then guess what? The chances are you're probably not going to get the business value out of it that you want.
So let's flip it on its head then. So what should people be doing when you say to focus on...
Well, what do you think, Jimmy?
Well, it was a leading question because I have the answer.
Good, I hoped you did.
Aside from talking to Doug and myself about how enterprise AI could help you, it is really about starting with a business problem and then realizing that the technology can just lower the barrier or the pain in actually addressing that problem. So there is just a more expanded toolkit, I would say. There are faster and easier ways to get things done, but to really start with, basic core business principles of what's really going to provide the most ROI or the largest return if we solve this problem. I was just making sure that you and I were aligned on that front and that you weren't interested in shiny things as much as some people are.
All good. Look, the only other thing that I think in this sort of very short news podcast would be to talk about the Nvidia piece that's where they've had a lot of trouble trying to get their product into China. Their product being the chips that actually drive the infrastructure for everything we use today when we're using ChatGPT or anything else. And they've created a slightly less new product for their chips that they're selling into China. And they've got that over the line, or they're pretty ready to actually deliver it.
They've done well there.
Yeah, they have. Right? It's like we sell the secondary product to China and China still wants it. Like it's an interesting play.
Yep.
China obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but seems to be struggling maybe on that. But I'm sure they've got a second plan and a third plan because they often do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it for today. We really just wanted to give you a bit of an intro, and this is a weekly podcast that we'll be running to give you an idea of what's happening in the world over the last week, and then give you hopefully a bit of an opinion on why that may be important for you.